Part 1. The Galactic Festival Authority had existed for 12,000 years. It was one of the oldest organizations in the known universe, and its job was simple. It planned parties. Not small parties, of course. The Authority planned the biggest celebrations in all of space. When a new species joined the galactic community, the Authority organized the welcome ceremony. When two civilizations signed a peace treaty, the Authority handled the event. When the 17 galaxies aligned once every 500 years, the Authority made sure everyone had a place to stand and watch. For 12,000 years, the Authority had done its job. No one complained. No one praised them either. The events happened, the delegates attended, and everyone went home. It was efficient. It was organized. It was, by every official measure, successful. But there was a problem. A quiet problem that no one wanted to talk about. The parties were boring. High Coordinator 9 knew this, even if they would never say it out loud. 9 was a being of pure geometric intention, which meant they existed as a complex shape that shifted and folded based on their thoughts. Right now, their form was a tight, worried knot. They floated in their office, reviewing the attendance reports from the last 300 years. The numbers were not good. Attendance at major events had dropped by 15%. 17 civilizations had stopped sending delegates entirely. The comments in the feedback forms were polite but damning. Adequate. Sufficient. Met minimum expectations. No one had ever written fun on a feedback form. No one had written exciting or memorable or can't wait for next time. The Authority's events were like eating plain nutrition paste. It kept you alive, but no one looked forward to it. 9's geometric form twisted with frustration. The convergence of stars was coming in just 2 cycles. This was the biggest event in the galactic calendar. 17 galaxies would align, and representatives from over 400 civilizations would attend. If the Authority couldn't make this event work, they might lose their funding. They might lose their purpose. And 9 had no idea how to fix it. The answer came from an unexpected place. A small human cargo ship called the Wandering Pig had gotten lost near the Authority's administrative station. This happened sometimes. Human ships were always getting lost. They had only been part of the galactic community for about 200 years, and they still hadn't figured out the standard navigation protocols. Most species found humans slightly annoying but mostly harmless. The Wandering Pig had requested emergency docking while they fixed their navigation system. As a diplomatic courtesy, the Authority had invited the human crew to observe a planning meeting. It seemed like a nice gesture. Humans were curious creatures who liked to watch things. The meeting was about lighting. For 6 hours, the planning committee debated whether the ambient lighting for the convergence should be set to 3000 Kelvin or 3001 Kelvin. Representatives from 12 subcommittees presented data. Charts were displayed. Arguments were made about tradition, about visibility, about the optical preferences of different species. The debate was serious and thorough and completely, utterly boring. The humans sat in the observation gallery. There were 5 of them, and they all had the same expression on their faces. It was an expression that 9 would later learn humans called losing the will to live. After 6 hours, one of the humans raised her hand. Her name was Daphne. She was small by human standards, with dark hair and tired eyes. She had been a logistics coordinator on Earth before joining the cargo ship, and before that she had worked in something called event planning. "Excuse me," Daphne said, "I have a question." The committee stopped. This was unusual. Observers were not supposed to ask questions, but 9, who was desperate for anything to break the monotony, allowed it. "You may speak, human." Daphne stood up. She looked at the committee, at the charts about lighting temperatures, at the serious faces of beings who had been debating 1 degree of warmth for 6 hours. "Have you considered fun?" she asked. There was silence. The universal translators, which could handle 800,000 languages, struggled with the word. They cycled through their databases, looking for an equivalent concept. They found nothing. After several seconds, they simply reproduced the sound. Fun, the translator said. Undefined term, please clarify. Daphne blinked. You know, fun, enjoyment, having a good time. More silence. The purpose of the convergence is diplomatic, said a committee member from the delegation. Delegates attend to fulfill their ceremonial obligations. Enjoyment is not a listed objective. Maybe it should be, Daphne said. The committee members looked at each other. Nine's geometric form shifted into something that resembled confusion. Could you explain further? Nine asked. Daphne took a deep breath. She thought about all the events she had planned back on Earth. Birthday parties, weddings, corporate retreats, music festivals. She thought about what made them work. Okay, she said. So, you're planning the biggest party in the universe, right? Hundreds of species, once every 500 years, huge deal. But you've spent 6 hours talking about whether the lights should be slightly warm or very slightly warm. Nobody is going to remember the lighting temperature. They're going to remember how the event made them feel. Feel? The delegate sounded confused. Events do not make one feel. Events are attended. That's the problem, Daphne said. You're organizing an obligation. You should be creating an experience. Something people will remember. Something they'll talk about. Something that makes them want to come back. She paused, trying to find the right words. You need atmosphere. You need surprise. You need moments that catch people off guard and make them happy they came. You need good food and music and places where people can relax and talk. You need. She searched for the simplest way to say it. You need vibes. The universal translator gave up entirely on that one. After the meeting, Nine asked Daphne to stay behind. They talked for 3 hours. Daphne explained concepts that seemed obvious to her but were apparently revolutionary to the authority. The idea of decoration, the concept of entertainment, the strange human practice of serving food that tasted good instead of just food that provided nutrition. Nine listened. Their geometric form slowly unfolded as they processed this new information. You are saying, Nine said slowly, that the purpose of a celebration is not merely to mark an occasion, but to create positive emotional responses in attendees. Yes, Daphne said, exactly. And humans have developed specific techniques for achieving this. We've been throwing parties for about 100,000 years. We've gotten pretty good at it. Nine was quiet for a long moment. Then their form shifted into something Daphne didn't recognize. Later, she would learn it was the geometric equivalent of determination. The convergence of stars is in 2 cycles, Nine said. I would like to hire you. Daphne laughed. I'm a cargo ship logistics coordinator. I haven't planned an event in years. You planned events before. Well, yes, back on Earth, but nothing like this. You're talking about 400 civilizations. Could you learn? Daphne thought about it. She thought about the boring meeting she had just sat through. She thought about all the species who would attend the convergence, all the opportunities for them to connect and celebrate together. She thought about what it could be if someone actually tried to make it good. I'd need a team, she said. You will have whatever resources you require. And full creative control. No committees debating lighting temperatures for 6 hours. Nine's form flickered with what might have been amusement. That can be arranged. Daphne looked at the High Coordinator. This was crazy. She was a human from a small cargo ship, and she was being asked to plan the biggest party in the universe. But then again, humans had always been good at crazy. Okay, she said, let's throw a party. 3 days later, the Galactic Festival Authority made an announcement that shocked the entire galactic community. For the first time in 12,000 years, they were bringing in outside consultants. They had hired humans. Part 2. Daphne's first task was to assemble a team. She sent messages to everyone she knew back on Earth, calling in favors and making promises. Within a week, 11 people had joined her at the authority's administrative station. They came from different backgrounds, but they all had one thing in common. They knew how to throw a party. Had spent 20 years organizing music festivals. He had managed events with 100,000 attendees, dealt with weather disasters, equipment failures, and performers who refused to go on stage. He was calm under pressure and had a gift for logistics. Was a chef who had run restaurants on 3 continents. She specialized in fusion cuisine, combining ingredients and techniques from different cultures. She had once catered a dinner for 40 heads of state, and everyone had asked for seconds. James was a lighting designer who had worked on some of the biggest concerts and theater productions on Earth. He could create any mood with the right combination of colors and shadows. Sophia was a landscape architect who had designed public spaces all over the world. She knew how to make environments that felt welcoming and alive. The others had skills in music, sound engineering, decoration, entertainment, and crowd management. Together, they were probably the most experienced event planning team in human history. They were also completely unprepared for what they found. The designated celebration zone was a platinum sphere the size of a small moon. It floated in the void between galaxies, positioned at the exact point where the 17 galaxies would align. The sphere was perfectly round, perfectly smooth, and perfectly empty. "It's like a hospital waiting room," said when they first saw it, but worse. "It's a giant ball bearing," James added. "Where are the windows, the texture, anything?" Daphne walked across the smooth platinum floor. Their footsteps echoed in the vast empty space. There was nothing here, no furniture, no decoration, no color, just endless polished metal. "What did they do before?" asked. "Delegates stood in assigned positions," Daphne said. She had studied the records from previous convergences. They watched the galactic alignment through. There was a reading of the complete regulatory code governing intergalactic diplomatic relations. "How long is that?" 47 hours. Everyone was quiet. "And the food?" asked, her voice careful. "A single beige nutrient paste, optimized for universal digestibility." Closed her eyes. She took several deep breaths. When she opened her eyes again, there was a determined fire in them. "We have 2 cycles to fix this," she said. "We need to get to work." The humans split into teams and began planning. The first challenge was the space itself. The platinum sphere was functional, but it had no character. Sophia spent 3 days walking every section of the sphere, making notes and sketches. "We need zones," she announced at their first planning meeting. "The sphere is too big for one continuous event. People will feel lost. We divide it into distinct areas, each with its own character. A main celebration hall for the formal ceremony. Food areas with different atmospheres. Entertainment venues. Quiet spaces where people can rest and talk. Gardens." "Gardens?" Nine asked. The High Coordinator attended all their meetings, trying to understand what the humans were doing. "Plants," Sophia explained. "Living things that grow. They clean the air, provide shade, and make people feel calm. We'll create floating garden spaces throughout the sphere, different plants from different worlds. With smells added, flowers that have nice scents, herbs that make you hungry. The right smell can change how you feel about a space." Nine's geometric form twisted with uncertainty. "The authority has never considered olfactory elements in event design." "That's why you hired us," Daphne said gently. The lighting was James's domain. He rejected the committee's proposal immediately. 3,000 Kelvin is fine for a work environment," he said. "But this is a celebration. We need variation. Warm lights in the dining areas to make food look appetizing. Cooler lights in the dance spaces to create energy. Soft lights in the rest zones. And for the main ceremony." He pulled up his designs on the holographic display. The platinum sphere was transformed into a canvas of color and shadow. We programmed the entire sphere to respond to the galactic alignment. As the 17 galaxies come together, the lights shift and change. The whole space becomes part of the show. Bistro lighting in the food zones, Sophia added. Small warm lights that create intimate spaces. People eat more and talk more when the lighting is comfortable. The food required the most work. Spent an entire week meeting with nutritional experts from different species, learning about dietary requirements, taste preferences, and cultural food traditions. Beige paste, she muttered to herself constantly. They served 400 civilizations beige paste. Her solution was ambitious. Instead of one food option, she proposed 17 distinct pavilions. Each pavilion would represent a different galactic culinary tradition, with dishes adapted for multiple species' dietary needs. The value precision and timing, she explained. Their pavilion will feature food that must be eaten at specific moments for optimal flavor. The crystalline hegemony absorbs nutrition through harmonic resonance, so their pavilion will have dishes that sing. The methane concordat breathes methane, so we're creating a sealed area with an appropriate atmosphere where they can enjoy food that actually tastes like something to them. And desserts, she added. Every pavilion will have desserts. What is the purpose of desserts? The authorities' nutritional subcommittee asked. They had been assigned to observe work. Joy said. The subcommittee did not understand, but they wrote it down anyway. Entertainment was the most controversial part of the plan. Previous convergences had featured only the reading of the regulatory code, proposed replacing it with music, dance, and interactive experiences. Music is universal, he argued. Every species we've researched has some form of rhythm or melody. We commission pieces that combine elements from different musical traditions. We build a performance space where the music surrounds you. And dancing, he continued. We install a zero-gravity dance floor in the center of the sphere. People can float and move freely. It's fun, and it encourages interaction between different species. What if someone does not know how to dance? Nine asked. Everyone can dance, said. They just move their body to the music. There's no wrong way to do it. That seems inefficient. That's the point. The most dangerous proposal came from his desire for pyrotechnics. He wanted controlled explosions of light and color to mark key moments during the celebration. Fireworks have been part of human celebrations for over 1,000 years, he explained. There's something about them that affects people on a deep level. The light, the sound, the surprise. It creates a shared moment of wonder. You want to create explosions inside an enclosed space containing 400 civilizations, Nine said flatly. Controlled explosions, very controlled. I've done this at festivals with 100,000 people. No one gets hurt if you plan it right. Nine's form became a tight, worried knot again, but they had committed to trusting the humans. After 3 days of safety reviews, they approved the plan. The final element was the hardest to explain. Daphne called it atmosphere. It was the combination of all the other elements, plus 100 small details that most people would never notice consciously but would feel. The temperature in different zones, she said, the background sounds, the way spaces flow into each other, the moments of surprise hidden throughout the event, a fountain here, an unexpected view there. Little things that make people smile. You are attempting to engineer emotional responses, Nine said. No, Daphne replied. We're creating opportunities for emotional responses. People will feel what they feel. We just give them the chance to feel something. As the planning continued, something unexpected happened. The authority staff began to change. At first, they watched the humans with confusion and skepticism. The humans worked strange hours, argued passionately, laughed at things that weren't funny by any logical measure, and seemed to make decisions based on something they called gut feeling. But slowly, the authority staff became curious. They started asking questions. They offered suggestions. A logistics expert spent 3 days helping Sophia calculate the optimal flow of foot traffic through the garden zones. A member of the crystalline hegemony worked with James on lighting frequencies that would create pleasant harmonic resonance for their species. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Festival Authority was not just organizing an event. They were creating something together. 2 weeks before the convergence, Nine called Daphne to their office. "I have been studying your progress," the High Coordinator said. "The plans are unlike anything the Authority has ever attempted. They are complex, unpredictable, and frankly terrifying." Daphne's heart sank. "Are you canceling the project?" Nine's geometric form shifted into something new, something open and hopeful. "No," they said. "I wanted to say that I am looking forward to seeing what happens. I believe that is the first time I have felt that way about a convergence in 3,000 years." Daphne smiled. "That's what we're going for." Part 3. The day of the convergence arrived. Ships from 400 civilizations gathered around the Platinum Sphere, waiting for the ceremony to begin. In the observation room, Daphne stood with her team, watching the arrivals. "Are you nervous?" asked. "Terrified," Daphne admitted. "We're either about to change how the universe celebrates, or we're about to cause a diplomatic incident that gets humanity banned from galactic events forever." "Probably the first one," said. "Maybe the second one, possibly both." The doors opened, and the first delegates entered. They were always first. They valued punctuality above almost everything else. Their delegation walked into the sphere and stopped. For a long moment, they simply stood there looking around. The space they entered was nothing like the empty platinum sphere they remembered. Warm lights glowed overhead, strung in delicate patterns. Living plants grew from floating platforms, filling the air with soft green scents. In the distance, music played, a gentle melody that combined elements from a dozen different traditions. Ambassador, the leader of the delegation, stood perfectly still. His species did not show emotion easily, but something in his posture changed. His rigid shoulders relaxed slightly. "This is unexpected," he said. A human greeter approached him with a smile. "Welcome to the convergence of stars. May I show you to the appetizer station?" Appetizers. The ambassador's translator struggled with the word. What is the purpose of appetizers? They're small portions of food served before the main meal. They help you relax and start conversations. The ambassador considered this. That seems inefficient. Would you like to try some? There was a pause, then very slowly Ambassador nodded. The appetizer station was a revelation. A human chef was demonstrating how to make something called spring rolls. Small, crispy packets filled with vegetables and served with a dipping sauce. The delegation watched with fascination as the chef folded the delicate wrappers. "The key is the timing," the chef explained. "You must fry them at exactly the right temperature for exactly the right duration. Too long and they burn, too short and they're soft." Ambassador's eyes brightened. Timing, precision. These were concepts his species understood deeply. He stepped forward. "May I attempt this process?" 3 hours later, the ambassador had made 47 spring rolls. They were perfectly uniform, each one fried to exact specifications. He ate 3 of them himself, which was more food than he typically consumed at diplomatic functions combined. "I would like this recipe," he told the chef. "I will introduce this practice to my." Across the sphere, similar scenes were unfolding. The crystalline hegemony had discovered the dance floor. Their species communicated through harmonic vibrations, and they had never considered moving their bodies to music. But when the human DJ started playing something with what she called a really solid bass line, something unexpected happened. One of the younger crystalline delegates began to vibrate, not in their usual communication patterns, but in sync with the music. The vibrations created patterns of light that rippled across their crystalline form. Other members of the delegation noticed. They joined in. Soon, the entire crystalline hegemony delegation was on the dance floor, their bodies pulsing with light and rhythm. "What is this?" their lead diplomat asked a nearby human. "Dancing," the human said. "You're really good at it, actually." The diplomat considered this. Their species had not developed a new form of expression in 11,000 years. They had believed their artistic evolution was complete. They had been wrong. In the methane atmosphere section of the sphere, something even more unexpected was happening. A delegate from the methane concordat was crying. Their species breathed methane and experienced taste very differently from oxygen-breathing life forms. For centuries, they had attended galactic events and consumed the universal nutrient paste, which provided nutrition but no flavor they could detect. Had spent 3 weeks developing food specifically for their atmospheric and biological needs. She had created ice cream that existed in the methane atmosphere, with flavors that their unique taste receptors could actually experience. The delegate took one bite and burst into tears. Their species had biological tear production, but it was a vestigial function. No one had seen a member of the methane concordat cry in living memory. "This is how food can taste," they asked between sobs. "This is what we have been missing." Handed them another bowl. "There are 17 flavors, take your time." Not everything went smoothly. The comedy show was a risk from the start. Had insisted on including a comedian, arguing that laughter was one of the most powerful bonding experiences in the universe. The comedian was a human named Wei who specialized in observational humor. He started with jokes about the difficulties of translation at diplomatic events, which got some laughs. Then he made a joke about bureaucratic inefficiency. A delegate from the administrative collective, whose entire civilization was built around bureaucratic processes, stood up. "I find this offensive," the delegate announced. "Bureaucracy is the foundation of orderly civilization." The room went quiet. Daphne felt her heart stop. Wei paused on stage, then he nodded. "You're absolutely right, I apologize. Bureaucracy is important. Without it, nothing would work." The delegate sat down somewhat. "It's just that sometimes," Wei continued, "it takes 4 hours to get a form approved, and by the time you get the approval, you've forgotten what the form was for." There was a moment of silence. Then the delegate from the administrative collective laughed. It was a small laugh, almost surprised. "This has happened to me," they admitted. The tension broke. Other delegates started sharing their own stories of bureaucratic frustration. The comedy show turned into a 2-hour discussion about the universal challenges of administration, with Wei moderating. Later, both the comedian and the administrative collective delegate described the experience as transformative. As the event continued, Daphne walked through the sphere, watching everything unfold. She saw a teaching a crystalline delegate how to fold spring rolls. She saw members of species that had never spoken before sitting together in a quiet garden, talking about their home worlds. She saw a young delegate from a newly contacted civilization standing on the observation deck, staring at the approaching galactic alignment with tears in their eyes. "I never knew it would be like this," the young delegate said when Daphne approached. "I thought diplomatic events were about standing and waiting. No one told me they could be beautiful." The galactic alignment began at exactly midnight, Universal Standard Time. All 17 galaxies moved into perfect position, a cosmic arrangement that only happened once every 500 years. In previous convergences, delegates would have watched this through in assigned positions while a voice read the regulatory code. This time, everything was different. James had programmed the entire sphere to respond to the alignment. As the galaxies moved together, The lights throughout the sphere began to shift. Colors flowed across the walls and ceiling, tracking the movement of stars and galaxies. The music changed, building slowly as the alignment approached its peak. Waited for the perfect moment. When the 17 galaxies formed their final configuration, he triggered the pyrotechnics. Controlled explosions of light and color erupted throughout the sphere, but these weren't ordinary fireworks. Each explosion was designed to reference a different galactic tradition, colors that meant celebration in culture, patterns that evoked joy in the crystalline visual language, sounds that resonated with dozens of different species' emotional triggers. And then, at the peak of the display, everything stopped. The humans had programmed 1 minute of silence into the celebration. 1 minute where all the lights dimmed, all the music faded, and everyone simply existed together in the darkness, watching the cosmos. 400 civilizations, beings of every possible form and nature, stood together in silence. They looked at the 17 galaxies aligned in the void, a sight that would not come again for 500 years. They felt the presence of all the others around them, all the lives and histories and hopes gathered in one place. And in that minute of silence, something happened that the Galactic Festival Authority had never measured or planned for. They felt connected. When the lights came back up, no one wanted to leave. The celebration continued for 3 more days, far longer than any convergence in history. Delegates exchanged contact information, made plans to visit each other's home worlds, and promised to stay in touch. On the final day, 9 found Daphne standing alone in one of the gardens. The plants were still green, still filling the air with their gentle scents. Around them, cleaning crews were already beginning the slow work of restoration. "Our efficiency metrics are completely destroyed," 9 said. Daphne smiled. "I know." The scheduling system failed within the first hour. Delegates went wherever they wanted instead of following assigned positions. "I know. We served 47 different foods instead of one. The regulatory code was never read, and someone taught the to dance." I think that was. 9's geometric form shifted into something Daphne had never seen before. It was open and warm, and if shapes could smile, that's what it looked like. "In 12,000 years," 9 said, "no one has ever sent a feedback form saying fun. We have received 412 forms today. Every single one says fun." They floated beside Daphne for a moment, watching the workers move through the space. "The authority would like to extend your contract," 9 said. "We want to hire you for every major event. Forever." Daphne laughed. "Forever is a long time." "Yes," 9 agreed. "We are hoping it will be." And so it began. Over the next century, humans became the universe's event planners. They organized welcome ceremonies for new species that made first contact feel like coming home. They planned peace treaty celebrations that reminded former enemies why peace was worth keeping. They created festivals and gatherings that beings traveled across galaxies to attend. The phrase "to add humans" became common in the galactic community. It meant to transform something ordinary into something memorable, to take an obligation and make it a celebration, to find the joy in any occasion. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as warriors or conquerors, not as the or the strongest, but as the beings who reminded everyone else that existence was meant to be celebrated. And that was, perhaps, the most human thing of all.